Good evening, everyone. Can we give a round of applause for the vibrant strings here tonight, providing the incredible music for us. Good evening, everyone. What an incredible evening, and thank you for joining us for a spectacular event for the Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper 35th anniversary. A round of applause. Thanks for being here tonight. What a great evening. My name is Jeff Russo. I work at 7 News as an anchor here in Buffalo. Especially honored to be here with you tonight on this beautiful evening in a beautiful space, celebrating really an incredible organization. I see a lot of smiling faces, a lot of familiar faces, a lot of friendly faces, and it's an honor to be here with each and every one of you tonight. I was asked as MC tonight to sort of share some personal stories about my involvement with Waterkeeper and why I've been a longtime supporter. However, since I'm in a room full of Western New Yorkers who know how strongly I feel about the necessity and the impact of Waterkeeper's work, I thought I would change gears just a little bit. Instead, I'm going to share a few interesting facts that I came across about our waterways here in Western New York. Some critical facts, some interesting facts, perhaps some humorous facts. The first one, let's start here. According to the United States Census Bureau, did you know this? 23% of the city of Buffalo's 53 square miles is water. 23%. Also, the Edward M. Cotter, the world's oldest working fireboat that docks along the Buffalo River, can fill an Olympic pool with water. Water in 11 seconds. It's 11 seconds for an Olympic pool. But here's the kicker. Here's the kicker. And I don't know if you know this or not. There is a sea monster in Lake Erie. There is a sea monster in Lake Erie. The monster's name is Bessie and is apparently a relative of the Loch Ness Monster. Now, the first sighting of Bessie occurred in 1763, but many have claimed to see the sea monster frequently, even in recent years. So think about that. That means for all the incredible work that the Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper has done over the last 35 years, they've done so looking over their shoulder, concerned that Bessie could pop up at any point. Imagine that, a sea monster here in Lake Erie. But that's the type of the organization, as you know, that the Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper has always been. An organization that will tackle any challenge that stands in the way with passion and dedication, finding a way to overcome any obstacles that are laid out in front. So whether it's restoring and protecting the Buffalo River, Scajaquada Creek, or Lake Erie, or staying clear of a 15-foot lake monster in Lake Erie named Bessie, we know the incredible leadership and staff here at the Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper and the countless volunteers that are here with us tonight who work diligently each and every year. They have our back as the guardians of Western New York's fresh water. It's a mission that impacts all of us in this room, all Western New Yorkers, and I am incredibly honored to be here to help celebrate and show our support for that mission and to be here with all of you tonight. So thank you all for being here on a wonderful evening for the Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper. On behalf of the Waterkeeper, I'd like to thank Bessie. No, we're not thanking Bessie. I want to thank, sorry, I misread that, the Ballback family, seriously, for donating this beautiful space tonight. The Buffalo AKG Art Museum for hosting us. If you haven't been here before, it's just such a joy and pleasure to be here with you all tonight. And Vibrant Strings, once again, they were absolutely incredible. They welcomed us in the door. Super talented group, really happy to have them. Waterkeeper would also like to thank all of the sponsors who made this evening possible. A lot of hard work went into this, including lead sponsors Gross Schumann PC, the Johnson Family Foundation, Labatt USA, Lawley, M&T Bank, Rich Products, the David and Joan Rogers Foundation, Scott Lawn Yard, and UBS Financial Services. We have some incredible folks to celebrate and to speak to tonight, some special guests along with us. Former Congressman Brian Higgins is here tonight, now the president and CEO of Shays Performing Arts Center, longtime supporter of Waterkeeper's work in our waterways here in Western New York. We'd also like to thank our event co-chair, Congressman Tim Kennedy, who could not be here tonight, hard at work representing our district right in the thick of things now in D.C., but he is represented here tonight by his Deputy District Director, Walt Cook. So thank you for being here tonight. We would also like to recognize in attendance tonight New York State Senator Sean Ryan, Matt Roble, representing Senator Chuck Schumer, is here tonight. Bonnie Kane Lockwood, representing Governor Kathy Hochul, and former Niagara Falls Mayor Paul Deister is here with us tonight. So thank you for being here. With that, it is my honor to introduce to you Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper's fearless leader and executive director, a person you can call with any environmental question at all times of the night, Jill Jedlicka. Round of applause for Jill. Wonderful.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff. I don't know about any time at night, but we'll go with that. My husband might kill me. Thank you, everybody. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our 35th anniversary celebration. Yeah. Now, before we dive into our formal program, I do want to just take a moment to reflect on this watershed moment, to express our flood of emotions as I look out to the sea of faces here tonight. Hang in there for a long ride on this one. This show of support demonstrates the effectiveness of our team and our gala committee to cast a large net, and the ripple effect of your support and that of our sponsors for our work, because we know that every pebble makes a splash. Thank you all for your gifts of time, talent, and treasure. Your collective efforts add up to more than just a drop in the bucket and are hugely impactful to our mission and organizational effectiveness. To our amazing staff team and our board of directors, we all know here at Waterkeeper that only dead fish go with the flow, so we choose to swim against the current together. It is because of the personal skills, passions, and unified commitment to clean water that our team is almost always rowing in the same direction, right guys? Which has resulted in generational change for our community. There are days when we feel literally like we're pushing water uphill, but it is the moments that we see when how our work results in how rising tides lift all boats, which keeps us inspired and motivated to keep going. In particular, a huge thank you to some key members of our team who've been drowning in work for months. Jim, Danny, Adam, Brittany, and Sandy for their collective energies and coordination efforts. And to Bonnie and Jen, who have also quietly yet brilliantly provided enormous time and effort to support the planning and execution behind the scenes. I am sure you all will have a wave of relief when this night is over. For the last 21 years, I have been honored and proud to be a part of this amazing organization, and I can't wait to see what the next 35 years of positive change is going to bring to our watering community. Thank you all for joining us for this special night tonight. Excuse me. Before we move further into our program this evening, we did want to take a moment to respectfully acknowledge the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, whose traditional territory we are gathered on tonight. As we celebrate the start of our water season, it is appropriate to reflect on the Haudenosaunee principle, which is to live in harmony with the surrounding environment. We ask that we all remain conscious and respectful of the land, the waters, and history and culture that surround us in the Great Lakes region. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. Those are the often quoted words of anthropologist Margaret Mead. But they also resonate when sharing the story of the origins of Waterkeeper. Our organization's founders took a leap of faith in 1989 when they formed the Friends of the Buffalo River. Their shared goal was not necessarily to change the world, but rather to effect change in our community to protect and restore this damaged and abused river system. Many times, names of individuals are lost to history, but here are some of the real people who made real change. And in this case, they put a movement into motion that continues to have generational impact on our community. Barry Boyer, Linda Schneekloth, Brian Higgins, Keith Martin, Ken Sherman, and soon after our incorporation, Margaret Wooster. And we wouldn't be complete if we did not mention our first executive director, Julie Barrett O'Neill. From the early grassroots origins of these volunteers, who would meet at the historic Harbor Inn on the corner of Ohio and Chicago, overlooking the Buffalo River, to the official installation of the first cohort of the Board of Directors on April 20th, 1989 at McDee's Pub. And I'm sensing a common theme here with the bars and pubs, but that might explain a few things of those early days. They would gather to strategize, organize, research, and disrupt the status quo. Not only did these founders and early leaders volunteer for decades to advance the goals and mission of our organization, but they dove deep on the environmental challenges and solutions, infiltrating processes, integrating their personal and professional lives. Because this is not a job, this is a lifestyle. The list of accomplishments and progress is too long to itemize. And how do you measure cultural shift that began to occur, or the improved societal attitudes and behaviors about our water that they collectively influenced anyway? They carried the mission and vision into various lines of work, including environmental law, architecture and planning, environmental science, community activism, higher education, and even the halls of Congress. Their early leadership and vision demonstrates that no matter how ominous our environmental challenges may be, it is always better to tackle them head-on and with the diverse partners and voices and persist until the solution comes into focus. For those members who are actually here with us tonight, thank you, Linda, Barry, Brian, and to our founders and early leaders for having the courage to put this experiment into motion and lay the foundation for Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper 35 years ago. The phrase, "we stand on the shoulders of giants," is a way to acknowledge that every generation benefits from the success and struggles of previous generations. And those efforts can often be a springboard for real change, as is the case of our founders. But specific to the long history of fighting for our waterways, we can also say that we stand on the shoulders of a relentless, in-your-face disruptor and activist. And that person was Stanley P. Spiesiak, also known as Mr. Buffalo River. An avid outdoorsman, he became a nationally recognized trailblazer and leading voice for Lake Erie and the Buffalo River, who inspired others to act and create change for future generations. Many of you are somewhat familiar with Stan's legacy and role as one of the region's earliest and loudest clean water advocates. Or you've heard the story about the famous bucket of sludge moment with President Lyndon Johnson in Buffalo Harbor. And you may even know that I have the honor to call Stanley Spiesiak my great uncle. He was an environmentalist before it was cool, which I'd like to think we're cool. Are we cool, guys? Yeah, we're cool. Yeah. But in 1953, he alone testified at the Erie County Water Pollution Control Board hearing to advocate that the Niagara River be given a Class A rating in order to protect our drinking water. At the time, local industry was advocating to have the Niagara River listed as a Class C stream, so they would be permitted to continue to dump toxic waste into that waterway. After months of Stan's relentless efforts and community mobilization and generating media coverage, the county did establish the Niagara River as a Class A water body, protecting drinking water for an entire generation. He continued his vocal efforts to clean up Delaware Park Lake and ignited a controversial battle with one of the area's largest employers, Bethlehem Steel Corporation, who was discharging cyanide into Lake Erie near the city's water supply. His advocacy for the Buffalo River is legendary, and his story is so large and impactful that it must be continued to be told for generations to come. Over the past decade, I had become acquainted with my father's cousin, John Spiesiak, who is Stanley's only son. John worked for years to help memorialize his father, and together we helped carry on the story of Stanley's impact through our various professions and networks. Sadly, we lost John in 2020, but we continue to pursue John's hope and vision with the support of Stanley's surviving family members. And I do want to mention that today we are honored to have with us as our guest Stanley's granddaughter, Liz McGeera, and her husband, Mike, who traveled all the way from Georgia to be here tonight. Thank you. With their support, we are proud to announce the establishment of a permanent legacy fund in honor of Stanley P. Spiesiak that will launch this fall. And gifts to this legacy fund will be dedicated directly to support Waterkeeper's efforts to advocate, protect, and restore Western New York's Great Lakes and waterways for current and future generations. So stay tuned for more information about the inauguration of the Legacy Society this fall. Trust me, I'm sure Jim will be calling many of you. All right, now I'd like to invite a gentleman who really does not need an introduction up to the podium with me. Former President, oh my God, I just gave you a promotion. Former Congressman Brian Higgins. Sorry, I conflated his new title. Anyway, thank you, Brian. So, one of my first professional and public interactions with Congressman Higgins was around 2004-2005. While at a public meeting about the Great Lakes and the Buffalo River Remedial Action Plan. It was a small crowd that the congressman was speaking to, but he treated the forum with the reverence and importance of the issue at hand, protecting our Great Lakes and local waterways. I was very new to my job as the Buffalo River Remedial Action Plan coordinator at Friends of the Buffalo Niagara Rivers. I had not worked or interacted directly much with federally elected officials at the time, so like many people in the general public, I had a cynical view of politicians and the belief that you had to be combative and even confrontational to be heard. So with all the false bravado that a young environmentalist who with a misguided sense of self-importance could muster, I challenged the congressman with some comments and questions that in hindsight were actually unfair and uninformed. Instead of taking the bait, the congressman calmly responded to me, and surprisingly by actually remembering my name, and with a level of genuine concern and a depth of scientific and historical knowledge of the issues at hand. That moment, I can honestly say, changed me for the better, and how I personally thought about and professionally interacted with the congressman and other elected officials for the rest of my career. That characteristic and trait is truly what made and continues to make Brian a uniquely and effective and tremendous leader. Over the decades, Waterkeeper and Congressman Higgins still had occasional differences of opinion, and we were not always on the same side of an issue every time. But we were able to address those differences through respectful debate, conversation, and even sometimes we would just agree to disagree. And that's okay. He always valued our organization's work, our expertise, our skills, and our leadership without relegating us as a special interest or those damn environmentalists, like several other local leaders have over the years. When we were planning for our 35th anniversary celebration this year, we knew we wanted to include recognitions and acknowledgments from many remarkable people who have contributed to the success of our organization and our mission. And that list would not have been complete without Brian Higgins. His waterfront legacy is well known, not just for the $279 million he was able to secure out of the Niagara relicensing agreement, or his advocacy for the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, or his shared love of our muddy little Buffalo River, but his deep knowledge of the relationship between history, culture, ecology, and economy. You can't fake that. His dedication to our community and our natural resources will be remembered amongst his many lifetime achievements. So please join me in expressing gratitude, not only from the 30,000 supporters of Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper, but from the millions of people of Western New York who rely on, love, and cherish our water resources. Thank you, Brian, for dedicating so much of your life and energy to protecting and restoring our waterways. Our community is a better place because of you.
First of all, let me just say to Jill Jedlicka, rock star, rock star, rock star. Not only in Buffalo and Western New York, but throughout the nation and the world. Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper is renowned for their extraordinary work under the most difficult circumstances. People historically that were displaced because of troubles at home in Europe and throughout the world, they came to the urban centers of the American Northeast because that's where the jobs were, that's where the manufacturing was. And industry along the Buffalo River was the chemical, steel, grain industry that had for 50 years free reign to dump their toxicity into this beautiful waterway called the Buffalo River. In 1968, the Buffalo River was set ablaze, a waterway set ablaze because of the toxic chemicals that weren't on the surface, but they rose to the surface because it was part of the bottom sediment. But I think the most important thing to say about the efforts to revitalize the Buffalo River, and Jill had recognized Barry Boyer, Linda Schneekloff, Margaret Wooster, and so many others, Ken Sherman, that were leading figures in that effort. I was a kid when I was elected to the Buffalo City Council in 1988, and I was a stranger of that issue, and they took me in. But the good thing about mentors, they changed me, and I realized that the revitalization of Buffalo was all about the revitalization of what had been taken from us. We had these beautiful waterways, and we trusted their generosity and took their replenishment for granted. 1968, the Buffalo River is declared biologically dead and ecologically destroyed. We were given the charge of developing a rap, not the musical genre. It was a remedial action plan, a not-for-profit group that had no money, and a bunch of dedicated people that were charged with the responsibility to develop a remediation plan to clean up this area of concern. You couldn't fish in there. You couldn't recreate in it. You couldn't get to the sides of this beautiful river that was once, because it was so polluted. Today, because of the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, which was an act of Congress, $400 million that we sponsored, there was money to go to communities to remediate these rivers. So they dredged the river from the toxic chemicals that lived at the bottom of the river. The delisting of the area of concern is within all of our lifetime. So you can eventually swim in the river, eat the fish from the river, recreate along the river, and Waterkeeper, Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper, was at the forefront of all of that. They are an extraordinary resource to our community that has taken the lead locally, nationally, and internationally. I had the great fortune of teaching the economic history of Buffalo and Western New York for many, many years. And we used to chronicle the rise and decline of Buffalo's economy dating back to the 1901 Pan-American Exposition. And Buffalo was the 8th largest economy in the entire nation, among the strongest economies in the entire world. All the great architects, Daniel Burnham, Richard Upjohn, Louis Sullivan, Henry Hobson Richardson, Frank Lloyd Wright, landscape architect, Frederick Olmsted, they weren't from Buffalo. They came to Buffalo because this was a city that exuded a confidence in itself to say to these creative people, you come to this magical place called Buffalo and you can get your vision turned into something real. And it transformed all of us. But what was the Pan American Exposition all about? It was about the natural resources of a river that fed a lake that fed a river, whose water was diverted and produced the cleanest, cheapest electricity in the United States. And then an act of Congress in 1957 took all that power that you once had to be here, that are unique to our community, and spread it thin to New York City and to 7 states outside of New York. You took a finite resources and it expanded the canvas. It lost its impactfulness. Fast forward to the last 20 years. Buffalo had lost confidence in itself. in the 50s and the 1960s, a lot of bad things happened. We believed that our fate was determined by external forces over which we had no control. Wide right, no goal. Those days are over. Those days are over. And I'll conclude by saying this. Buffalo is the talk of the nation right now. The Economist magazine, the New York Times, the Boston Globe, Forbes magazine, Fortune magazine. People magazine in 2017 did a story about the 100 things that are great about America. Buffalo was number 17, just below the Jonas Brothers. So finally, 6 months ago, Reader's Digest. I didn't even think Reader's Digest was a thing anymore. They came out and they said that Buffalo was the kindest, most laid-back city in America. Money magazine said Buffalo was the best place to live in all of America. Zillow said the hottest real estate market in America is Buffalo, New York. But I'm stuck on this kindest, most laid-back city. The answer came to me 2 weeks ago. Buffalo News article, Buffalo is one of the top 3 pot weed cities in America. Everybody is so laid back and kind because everybody's stoned. Let me just say this. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity that you've given me to represent this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful community in the United States Congress. We want to thank Jill Jedlicka and Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper for the good things that they have done, only for the people and the future generations that they love. And finally, we give thanks to a good and generous nation, a good and generous nation that makes this day and all of our days possible. Thank you for the award. Thank you, Jill.
Brian. And here all this time, I thought that it was our water that made Western New York amazing, but apparently it's the pot. All right, folks, stay with me. So, I swear this is my last section before I hand it off to somebody else. You'll have to stop listening to me, but, naming this our Emerald Evening is very appropriate. Thank you, Rob Cody, on our team for coming up with the name and branding this event. The alliteration's awesome. So I did a little research. So not only is emerald associated with the number 35, but we also pay homage to the beautiful emerald channel of the Niagara River, where we pull our drinking water from. The emerald shiner is a keystone species in the Niagara River and the Lake Erie food web. The emerald ash borer is an invasive species that has had an effect on our restoration work. Emeralds represent spring growth, new beginnings, peace and security, and are believed to hold physical and emotional healing powers. We couldn't think of a better symbol to reflect on 35 years. When we look back over time, Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper was founded as Friends of the Buffalo River, and it was artfully led by a handful of volunteers and concerned citizens who organized to raise awareness in the community to protect and restore the Buffalo River. Over time, our mission and our impact grew. Individual citizen action was magnified into the thousands, scientific knowledge increased about our local waters, and we helped spearhead many of the partnerships and actions needed to restore local waterways. So some of the signature projects and accomplishments over 35 years, we would be here for about 5 hours talking about that. But some of the key areas that Waterkeeper made a difference: becoming the first nonprofit organization in the Great Lakes to oversee a remedial action plan, helping negotiate the Niagara River Greenway settlement with the New York Power Authority to have dedicated funds for ecosystem restoration for the next 50 years. Spearheading the Buffalo River Restoration Partnership, which is a unique public-private and nonprofit collaborative that generated a $100 million investment into our Buffalo River. We spearheaded behind-the-scenes work to start Skajackwada Creek projects into motion. We've achieved international recognition by winning the North American River Prize in 2015 and the Global Peace International River Prize in New Delhi, India in 2016. We've been invited to the White House to weigh in on clean water challenges and regional initiatives. We've built a contingent of 30,000 supporters and 2,000 active volunteers. And we've established an internationally recognized model of community-led restoration and protection efforts. Yeah, I think we're pretty tired, but channeling our founders' energies and persistence, I am here to tell you that this last 35 years was just a warm-up. We're just getting started. Our work has always been guided by action and impact. Our amazing team carries a disproportionate load of projects and programs every year, and I think we can safely say that we're not your average nonprofit. So looking ahead and keeping ahead of future stressors and challenges, we got a large list of things to do that I'm not going to necessarily read off because I think I'm losing people. But in 2024 alone, because of our work that does not follow geopolitical boundaries, we know that we are part of a much larger ecosystem. So tonight, we are thrilled to announce the expansion of Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper's active jurisdiction to now include the entirety of the Lake Erie shoreline to the Pennsylvania border. We will continue to lead the region in coastal and climate resiliency. We are kickstarting environmental justice grant-making program this year in partnership with local partners. And in 2024, we're continuing progress with several other partners to establish our long-term vision of the Buffalo Waterways Center. So yes, in closing, my closing, you don't have to be a professional environmentalist to care about the environment. You just have to care and do something, big or small. The fact that 300 of you are standing with us here tonight demonstrates how water connects all of us. Water advocates champion our cause, not because it's our job or someone else has asked us to do it, but because we are driven by our own inspirations, our stories, and love of community. So please, find your inspiration, tell your story, and help us make positive change in our community. Thank you for your continued support.
Thank you, Jill, for your work and your vision for our waterways. On behalf of Waterkeeper, we would also like to thank the many supporters and donors who are here tonight to really step up and make this a special evening. Now I'd like to introduce Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper Board President Chanel McCarthy to the podium tonight.
So each year, a member of our community is identified as the recipient of the Mike Hamilton Memorial Award. Mike was a dedicated board member, volunteer, and visionary leader who forever lives in the hearts of the Waterkeeper. This recipient is someone who the board and staff believe are dedicated to the protection, preservation, and restoration of our waterways, and who through their life and action gives voice to the waters and environment of our region. I am honored tonight to give this award on behalf of Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper to Deb Gondik. Deb served on the board for over 9 years. She was board chair from 2018 to 2020, and she actively participated on several committees and led some of them as well. She remains engaged in the Waterways Center on the planning committee. And Deb retired from Rich Products, where she worked for about 17 years, and she was the first Director of Sustainability, and that is a program that is still existing at Rich's. Her legacy lives on through that program. Deb is also LEED certified and continues to deploy her skills, passion, and expertise to issues that matter. She became a member of the North Tonawanda Climate Smart Communities Task Force, a New York State program that helps local governments take action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and adapt to a changing climate. Deb is a leading voice in our community, and we are honored to present her with this award.
Thank you, Chanel.
You're welcome. Each year, Waterkeeper honors an extraordinary volunteer, and every year it is a difficult task to choose just one person. This year, we also wanted to honor and remember an incredible human being and volunteer, Yuri Hershishin, simply known as Yuri in Waterkeeper's world. He was a dedicated volunteer for Waterkeeper and numerous other organizations for decades. He had an infectious personality and was in a relentlessly positive attitude. He lived along the banks of the Buffalo River and was often an extension of the organization's Eyes on the Water. Yuri passed away earlier this year, and we wanted to honor his legacy by naming our annual Volunteer of the Year award in his memory. The 2024 Yuri Volunteer of the Year award is presented to Don Cody. Don has also recently become a colleague on the board who we're honored to have. Don's involvement with the organization started way back when Waterkeeper was simply known as Buffalo Niagara Riverkeeper. Since then, she has done almost every single shoreline sweep, serves as a site captain in Niagara County, and she and her husband Jim have also been trained and serve as River Watch volunteers. Dawn is also a Waterkeeper volunteer ambassador, where she is able to engage hundreds of people at various events. And Jill mentioned earlier that we have every year for our annual sweep over 2,000 volunteers at multiple locations around Erie and Niagara County. Dawn's volunteerism crosses boundaries to her professional life, where she has had her own staff team get involved with Waterkeeper's mission through planting trees on Gill Creek. Not only does she volunteer for Waterkeeper, but she also volunteers for many other organizations. Basically, Dawn helps anywhere she's asked. It's obvious to anyone who knows Dawn that she is the gold standard of volunteers, and we are so honored and incredibly lucky to have you involved in our organization. Congratulations.
Thank you, Chanel. Congratulations to Brian, to Deb, and to Dawn. Buffalo Niagara Waterkeepers accomplished so much for our waters and environment over the last 35 years, but there's so much more to come for the next 35. I want to just give you a heads up to remind you we have this wonderful and beautiful space available to us until 9 o'clock. Enjoy a cocktail, enjoy some food. There's some wonderful exhibits happening right now, a very powerful exhibit right around the corner before and after again. Also remember that there's an auction going on right now that you can participate in. It's important for you to take part in that. A lot of awesome things available for you, trips to the US Open, wine tours, so much more. So take a look at that. If you have any questions, talk to the folks at Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper. With that, I want you just to grab your glass really quickly. In closing, raise a glass with me. In one way or another, what's contained in that bottle or glass has some component of water in it. Really, the key we are gathered here for tonight is water. Each of us shares in the responsibility of helping to make our waterways and environment clean for the next 35 years, as we are all water keepers. Cheers to 35 years, cheers to 35 more, and thank you for Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper for leading the way. Thank you so much for being here tonight.